All right. So, quick review from last time. One of the biggest differences of this curriculum from the way that I was taught math is that it focuses on starting with inquiry. So, you see that first step is teacher invites students to think about a question. And then it moves students to try to start thinking on their own around the question that was given to them. And then ideally, the students then get to start talking to each other about what their ideas are around how to solve a challenging problem, while the teacher is going around and observing and coaching. And then lastly, there's a synthesis activity that should happen where the teacher's making sure they're stamping the key concepts and stamping the common strategies to um, to complete the problem or to address the question that gets posed. If you can tell that this is like not your like it's not your run of the mill instruction. It's like pretty complex instruction to do this. You have to be a pretty skilled teacher. And so we know that our very experienced teachers may be able to do this, but we do know that younger, newer teachers, new to the profession, may have challenges doing this type of complex instruction. And so has anyone noticed anything yet? Like, has anyone had any conversations with their teachers? Are teachers feeling excited? Are teachers, are they doing this? Does anyone on you? I'd just love to hear what you guys are noticing if this cycle is happening or whether or not teachers are feeling connected to it. Any insights would be great to hear from you all. I'm going to look in the chat too. I'm going to expand my chat box to see what people have been noticing. How about summons or something? Are you guys, is it happening? Is this happening for your kids? Do you guys know? If you don't know, this is a good time to start talking in the teacher conferences to see how your teachers are feeling. Because our schools need to be providing them support through all this. And I think often with everything that's going on, a lot of schools are having a hard time supporting teachers. And so some of the organizing we might need to do is on sites, like within the school site, like figuring out how we can support teachers to have enough time and energy and space to get the professional development they need and support they need to deliver this curriculum. So
Yeah,
I'm
Michael,
gonna
someone
go.
was saying, Julie was saying that she's planning to ask teachers next week at the parent teacher conferences. So SFUSD has parent
Yay!
teacher conferences next week.
Yeah, that's awesome, Joey. So I'm gonna throw these in the. Will you throw them in the chat? I'm gonna show people them again, just in case they don't remember that we used these last time here, or maybe it's the first time. But if you go to the IM illustrative math page, you'll remember that there was for every grade level, there's a family page, and so you can look at all the resources that are available to families for every grade level. So this is a great way to see what kids should be working on. And you can ask your teachers, your child's teacher, what unit they're on, even, and you can go to the exact unit that kids are working on. And so there's this same kind of website exists for our middle school math, which is Amplify, and it looks like this. Same situation where all the sixth, seventh, and eighth grade, all resources are in one place. Has anyone done this since we left? Since you were in last session, did anyone dig around and just like play around with the resources? It's okay if you didn't. It's also, I'd love to hear what you guys have noticed so far. Julie, were you able to get in there between now and the last session?
I wasn't. I asked my kids more
Yeah.
about their math homework than I have before, though.
Yay! Cool. I feel like that's the good first start. Like, because we don't have that much time to like doing our own research, but if we can just see what our kids are doing, it's a great start. But if you get stuck, you can always come over here. So I'm putting those in the chat because we're going to do an activity in a little bit, and I want you guys to have access to this to start thinking about what sort of goals you might want to set with your child. All right, let me go back into the mode. And then, so some schools have been really good at making sure families get their state standard data, like in the beginning of the year. I love it when in the beginning of the year you get it, you know where your kids are at, and you can start thinking about your child, whether or not they're at grade level or if they're behind. And then if you haven't ever checked, you can actually check how your school is doing on the state standards relatively easy as well. Have you all seen this page, the California assessment? If you haven't checked it out, you can literally look at any school in the entire state. Someone give me a school in San Francisco that you have your kids at. Just
West Portal
anyone?
Elementary.
West Portal. Let's go check out West Portal. Bam, shows up right away. You can see 62% of kids are meeting standard in English, and 63 are meeting standard in mathematics. You could break these down by student subgroups and all that. There's a lot of data very accessible to all families at the school-wide level. Obviously, you won't use this website to get your child's data, but if you wanted to know how the school is doing, you can go here. But you all do have a system in San Francisco Unified where there is a parent portal that should give you access to both the state tests that students take from the third grade up, as well as the interim assessments. So an interim assessment means that schools have a way to see whether or not kids are making progress along the year. And those tests at San Francisco Unified are called the STAR assessment. I would presume that some schools are really good and diligent at making sure every kid takes this test, and they have a good, like, meaningful testing kind of calendar. But that's something you also might want to bring up in your conference. So if you click on this link, it'll take you to the family portal. It's called Parent View, and this is where a lot of data is accessible for families to see both state testing, the interim assessment data, and probably other data like attendance or things like that. So there is has anyone, thumbs up if you've used Parent View before? Has anyone used Parent View? Okay, at least Jerry has. Okay, Julie has. So if you could log in there, you should be able to find how your child has done in the interim assessments and or the state assessments. And if you don't know how to get into Parent View, or you don't have access to the data for whatever reason, I added a prompt, like an email that you can copy and paste and edit so that you can reach out to get what you need so that you can find out whether your kid's at grade level or not. So these are all links. Whenever you see a page on the slides that have these little blue chain links, that means that there's a bunch of resources on that page that you guys can come back to. Jerry, I'm noticing that people are going in the chat. It's probably you. Awesome, fantastic. Julie, how much faith do you put in these assessments? They don't seem consistent in my limited experience. I have, I'm not sure what assessment you're talking about, but the state assessment is pretty consistent. Like, I feel like there's enough items on the test and the state test, and they're randomized enough that I think if you get your state test data, that should be a good indicator. Now, whether or not a child that gets at or above grade level in the state test is going to crush Algebra 1 or Algebra 2, I think that's where it might be more complex. But in general, as a high school principal, I saw students who were at grade level getting to me were having a really easy time in Algebra 1. We're doing totally fine. So I think the state test is a good
And the state
high school
test
readiness
is the
test.
CAS?
The CAST, yeah, the California assessment. Yeah. And the STAR assessment should be aligned to the state standards. That's the way that's designed. I think what I was saying about being consistent with those tests is that, like, they may not focus on them. They might not do them when they're supposed to do them. And so you just gotta have conversations with your school to see whether or not they're doing them when they should be. And then lastly, if you just wanted to be like, tonight, can I log off and then go sit with my kid and just do something quickly? Learning Heroes, which is the organization that I work with pretty extensively, also has a simple tool for you to see whether your child is at grade level. Once again, this is not like not going to be perfectly accurate, but at least it'll give you a sense of, I have a fourth grader and I want to see how they're doing in math. And it'll just give them a quick assessment online that you could sit with them and do it. And I think that it's like less than 30 minutes. So those are all the ways that you can find out whether or not your child is at grade level, above grade level, or below grade level. Because if we don't know that, then it's going to be hard to support our kids.
Michael, what
Any
do you
questions? Or yeah.
Sorry
Go
to
for
jump
it.
in.
Go for
Yeah,
it.
I was going to ask, what do you recommend if parents take a look at this data and have concerns? What would be what recommendations would you have for them, as next steps or immediate next steps, or how to advocate?
Yeah, I think the first thing is to have, which is the next slide, but it's the first thing is just talk to your child, right? Like, how are they feeling about math? Because the reality is sometimes our kids do poorly on tests, but they actually maybe enjoy math. And so if you jump over the fact that they're maybe enjoying math, or they feel playful with numbers, but they don't do well in tests, you don't want to crush their spirit by just saying, hey, you got low in this test. And now all of a sudden they're starting to think I'm not good at math. So I would say the next step is always to have a conversation with your child about how they feel about math and what they're thinking about math, and And then I would say the second step after that is going to talk with your child's teacher. What is the teacher noticing about your child's mathematics? And then it's about practice, just figuring out what skills they need. If you have the state test scores, you should be able to see what standards they're struggling on and not struggling on. And then you could supplement it with things like Khan Academy, which is the easiest way to kind of target skills. So another way I wanted to give you all access to just like what are they doing in the grade level? And in all transparency, I just pulled some working with ChatGPT. I asked, give me sample standards and sample test items for all grades between kinder and 8th grade. And so I built this tool with our ChatGPT friend. So you all can see if your child's in the 8th grade, what might be some of the beginning of the year things that they should be able to do. Are you guys following me along here? So for everyone in the room, no matter where your kid's at, you should at least have a sense like here are just 4 example standards and test items that could be on the state test. You all can do this yourself if you want to, but I wanted to give you a place that you could start and just be like, okay, let me see how my kids are doing. Are they able to do the beginning of the year things or not? So that's one more thing that I wanted to offer you all is just like a sense of what are the grade level standards and what do grade level assessments, what might they look like? Okay. Any questions about this resource? Jerry, you're my link goddess today. Yeah, I really appreciate you putting all these links in there. So I will say one of my favorite days as a leader was when we gathered families in the Cole Elementary School building in West Oakland, and we had families sit in circles, and they were looking at they were sitting in circles by grade levels, and they were looking at the state assessment and the standards with each other. And families for the first time said, like, "Oh, teachers have never showed me these. I never knew what my child was supposed to be able to do at this grade level," and it was very eye-opening for them. So we are not all together in circles in person, but I was like, if I can at least give you a tool that maybe you can start this conversation and you can start to think like, yeah, this is what it looks like. You could also get this by going to the websites for Elluminate and FFI. Not Elluminate, I'm mixing up Illustrative Math. You can get examples of the problems, but this is a one-pager. You can have it all in one place. All right. The next resource I'm going to give you before we go into breakout rooms to talk about what we're going to do is I wanted to give you all some ways to have conversations with your children about how they're feeling about math, to get back to Jerry's question. And so when you go to this tool, if you want to explore your child's just general feelings about math, their math identity, how they approach struggle. This came from people, a few participant specific questions. How do I talk to my child about these things? And then some students who are feeling math is futile, like what's the point of math? Those are the questions here in this section. And then from this resource, after you have this type of conversation with your child, then you can move into turning those conversations into action. And so here are some really specific next steps you could do with your child, as well as a bank of resources. Like I said before, Khan Academy is a really simple way to give your kids some practice and assessments around math. So this is another resource for you all to, one, have a discussion with your child, and then think about what your specific next steps are with your child based upon the conversation you have with them, and then a set of resources for you all to think about using for your children. Okay. Any questions about this doc? No? So, last thing before, some people asked last session, well, how do I set goals? What does it mean? How do I set goals with my child? What are the types of goals that make sense? And these are the 3 goals that I've coached families and I use with my own children. One type of goal might just be like, that your child's not really putting in effort. They're not just putting in the time. And so you might want to set goals that are just like, no, you're going to work on math 30 minutes a day, no matter what, right? You're going to have some extra resources if they don't want to have math work at home. For my son, Joseph, his handwriting is horrific. It's just off the charts bad. And I think it's because he was in kindergarten during COVID. And so they just didn't have him practice handwriting. And his vocabulary and his ideas are so far beyond his hands that I think he just gets frustrated writing. So for us, the thing that we do with effort is you're going to neatly show your work, and you have to review your work before you show it to me. And I'm going to look at it every time you're done because I want you to practice being neat. All right. And so this whole column on the left is this is a goal for some students. That might be a good starting point where these are accessible things to measure as a parent. You don't have to dig that far. It's very easy for me to measure these things on the left as a parent and for me to keep track of them. The ones in the middle, I think, are more things that I put on the calendar of our year. These are like, when am I starting to have conversations about, tell me about your conversations with your child. I mean, with your teacher. So my daughter's in high school. High schoolers hate asking for help. So her goal for this year is in this middle column. I want you to go talk to your teacher and introduce yourself before school because you told me you're struggling in this class. And so your relationship with them and your capacity to build trust with them and have good rapport is going to be crucial to you doing well in this class. And so I've been coaching on her on building trusting relationships with her teachers. That might look different for third grade or fourth grade, but it's equally important. Do our young people feel like when we're stuck, I can ask for help? I talk to my child about working with their peers sometimes. Learning is very social. So maybe part of what they could do is have homework clubs at your house and gather and work together. I talk to my children a lot about history. And I want my children to have a more inclusive understanding of how math has been used in every continent and not just in Europe. And so you might consider different types of math conversations about the history of math and how math shows up in every day. These are all, once again, things that I think like our field trips when we go to all the amazing museums we have in our communities. These are some of the things I kind of put in my mind. And they're not goals I'm going to measure. They're just goals that we're going to do together as a family and make sure that I'm being intentional. Career exploration, that my young people understand, my children understand how math can open doors for careers. So those are other goals that you might want to set. And that would be all things that come out of the conversations you have with them, right? And then lastly is just the good old fashioned, like, show me the money. Like, how are you doing? Let me see your grades. Let me see your test scores. Let me see how you're doing with your times tables, whatever it is. Maybe it's the goals are about their growth on achievement over time. But these are 3 frames for you to think about the types of goals that you might want to set with your child or track with your child or just kind of put on the calendar so that they happen over time. So now Jerry's going to make breakout rooms, and it sounded like people were talking in these breakout rooms. They were not just silence. Hopefully, I want you all to like, based upon everything I've given you now, the idea like I'm going to find out where my kids are at, whether they're at grade level or below or above or wherever. I'm going to think about what kind of conversation I want to have with my child. I'm going to think about what kind of goals I might want to set with them, and what's next for me in trying to just get feeling confident in supporting my child. Maybe it's looking at the curriculum. Remember, I gave you the links to the curriculum too. If you look at all these things that Jerry put in the chat for the last 30 minutes, get in the breakout rooms. We're going to give you more time. We're going to give you 7 minutes in breakout rooms. And what we're hoping you do is do whatever homework you need to do based upon the links we just gave you, and then start having a conversation about what's next for you. Okay. When we come back, I'm going to talk about parent-teacher conferences. So parent-teacher conferences are coming up. And I wanted to give you all a insight into what the research tells us about what makes great parent-school partnerships. And this is a resource that is meant to be directed towards educators and school leaders and school system leaders, but I always feel like it's helpful for families to see what the research says around what makes school family partnerships work. And so if you ever wanted to learn more, just because how many links do you need today? I'll just keep giving you links and you can choose which link is going to be yours. But in a nutshell, what the report says is schools that build trusting relationships with families, where teachers feel like they can be honest, families feel like they can be honest, that we can feel like there's a sense of reciprocity, that we're not just transacting, right? We're not just like trying to get a service. It's not an exchange, right? It's like, no, I care about you, you care about me, you care about my child. Let's have real conversations like we were just having with Monica about like, man, raising kids is like, it's hard in these streets. That type of real reciprocal relationship allows for schools schools that have higher trust, there's lower chronic absenteeism. Schools that reported high levels of trust had less learning loss during COVID. Like the impact of trust on schools is profound. And that's the first pillar of this research. And it says that when you have trust, then you then can move into the second pillar, which is having really meaningful conversations about our students' learning and well-being. That if you skip over that step and we just only talk about student learning and well-being, but you don't have trust, it don't feel right. It doesn't feel right to just talk about learning, but I'm not sure you know me or know my child or care for us, right? It's hard to talk about our well-being if we don't have trust, because it's harder to be honest and authentic. So, but we really want to make sure that schools are talking about student learning and well-being, because sometimes we see schools don't talk about it. They think family engagement is like carnivals and potlucks and things that don't talk about student learning and well-being. So that's the second pillar. And so when I think about parent-teacher conferences coming up, they're an infrastructure that schools can put in, and you can invest in infrastructure and training teachers and creating resources so that when people get together in parent-teacher conferences, that there's trust being built and that we're having meaningful conversations about student learning and well-being. So this is just a simplistic way to think about when you show up to the parent-teacher conference, how can you make sure that you're building trust with your child's teacher and they're building trust with you, and that you guys are talking about what matters, our students' learning and well-being. Reactions to this, thoughts about these pillars for effective family engagement? This all rests on Dr. Karen Knapp's work. She's from Harvard. She built a framework called the dual capacity framework. What essentially argues is that family engagement that's meant to for schools to act upon families is broken, and that anytime we're bringing families together with educators, we should both be trying to get better. So that's why it's called the dual capacity framework, is that educators are there to grow and families are there to grow, and together we can work with our kids. And so she really advocates for a reciprocal relationship between schools and families.
Is there any just a question, is there how much of a difference does it make in a child's outcomes if that?
Massive. Yeah, so there's research from John Hattie. The number one indicator of student learning at a school is whether or not the community feels like their work together, the way that what they're doing can change student outcomes. And that's usually measured by the number of teachers who say, we together as teachers can make an impact, can change a student's learning outcomes. That belief that we can do it together is the number one impact on student achievement, and across all the kind of meta-analyses he did. And so I bring that study up because essentially when we say parent partnerships, that means we're expanding that sense of who's saying we believe we can change student learning to include families. And so, but there's also massive, so many studies that show that just parent-teacher relationships, school, family relationships have a huge impact on student achievement as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm gonna get me nerding out on all the research. So I wanted you all to have some time to think about what you want to do before your child's parent-teacher conference. And if you're in middle school and you have a child that's going to student-led conference with their advisor, it's essentially the same conversation. You want to make sure that you don't show up to the meeting waiting to be told about what you're going to talk about. Ideally, you've done some preparation to say hey, I have some things I want to talk about, and I have some relationship I want to build with you. And I want to tell you, since I've been working in schools, I'm surprised by the number of teachers who are profoundly uncomfortable talking to adults. A lot of teachers go into teaching because they like to work with young people. And so teachers end up feeling unconfident sometimes, or anxious. They feel like they have to perform competence. The way I describe it is I want to make sure these parents think I'm good. And so whatever we could do to say, hey, I'm really glad you're here. I want to get to know you. I want you to get to know our family. Then we can build that trust that we can then have hard conversations and feel like we can work on something together. So this resource can help you think about how to get ready for your parent-teacher conferences or your meetings with your child's advisor if you're in middle school. Really get ready to share what you notice about your child. If you have any stuff at home that you want to look at to make sure that you have a sense of where your child's doing, how they're doing with data, all those things we talked about. And then get ready to share something about your family. Jerry knows this. I'm always talking about who I am. I think who we are matters. I don't think we're clean slates. I think all of us bring the experiences and wisdom and our families. And I think sometimes it's helpful to like show that humanity to our teachers and encourage our teachers to share their humanity with us in some ways too. So I think thinking about what hopes and dreams and goals and who we are and what's meaningful to us is a good way to create some trust with your child's teacher. So this is just a resource for you to think about how to get ready for your parent teacher conferences that I'm sharing here. And I want you all to think about everything we've talked about so far, right? So I'm going to scroll back. You have access to the curriculum. If you have questions about the curriculum, parent teacher conferences may or may not be the right time to do it, but maybe it's like, hey, like, how's it going? Maybe you just want to ask that question as a teacher. Tell me how the new curriculum is going. Maybe during your parent teacher conference, you want to talk about your child's proficiency. Maybe you want to ask for the report. Maybe you want to come ready because you've already done it. Maybe you want to share with what your child has said about their feelings about math. We had to tell my child's teacher this year that he is very Joseph, our 10-year-old, feels very uncomfortable asking for help and kind of he's super shy. He's usually not the person to talk. And so we wanted to make sure our teacher knew if he asks you for help, we really want you to affirm that behavior because it's really hard for him. And so it's gone so well. Like Joseph has gone affirmed multiple times now. He feels like it's normal. He's now going to class slightly early to ask for help. And if you told me that was going to happen last year, I wouldn't think that was the case. So these are all things that came from conversations that we had with Joseph before we had our parent teacher conference. Maybe you want to share some of the goals you were setting with your child. But I would love for you all to spend a little bit of time thinking about how you want to get ready for a parent teacher conference, get ready for, maybe you don't have a parent teacher conference. Maybe you want to figure out how am I going to reach out to my child's teacher, just because I want to have a conversation with them. But I think we want to make that first step to build the bridge with our child's teachers. So questions first, or before we move on to the next thing. How are you all feeling about your parent teacher conferences? What excites you or concerns you? And what help that you need? What would make you feel more confident in going to those conversations? Bueller, anyone out there? Are you guys excited for them? Are you worried about them? Any stories you guys had of how the parent teacher conferences have gone?
I'm worried that their teachers are gonna get on my case for them not doing their homework. And I'm kind of a parent that doesn't care that much about homework, so I don't really know how to convey that with still respecting the equity in the class for like everyone needs to do their homework, but like if my kids are and they're having fun and reading and doing other things when they get home from school, I don't feel like I need to badger them to do homework.
Yeah. Have you had an experience that made you feel like they might be judging you or angry with you?
No, I don't think they're going to be angry. They're lovely humans, but I know it's going to come up as the main thing that they're not keeping up with their homework.
Yeah.
So one of them is the fourth grader.
One of the things you might consider doing is preloading some things you want to talk about with a teacher, or just putting it on the table before you get there. I actually really encourage, I spend most of my time coaching teachers in schools on how to do better at parent teacher conferences. I often tell them preload things, like let families know what you want to talk about, make it feel warm and welcoming, right? So we can do the same thing as parents. We can kind of preload some things. And hearing what you just said, Julie, like I can't imagine any teacher like, my son's doing really well, he understands math. We're not gonna be really harping on him doing homework because he's happy and joyful, and that's what's important to us. I can't imagine a teacher being very angry at that. Monica, I noticed you brought your camera on. Any thoughts or reactions to getting ready for these parent teacher conferences?
Just trying to figure out how to have conversations. I have a kindergartner as well, and I think the things that worry us about her is more behavioral and to figure out how to address that. Well, first of all, I'm curious if it's even happening at school or if it's just stuff happening at home with us, or and mostly around her, like you were talking about earlier, she has zero patience and resilience for struggle. And so
Mm.
like she really for example, she really wants to read and like her older brother, but it's taking her a little bit longer to figure out how to do it. And so then she tries to give me books that she's memorized so she doesn't actually
Oh,
read. But I can tell she's memorized because she'll like read a word that's like completely different from the word on the page, read. And
yeah.
so anyway, like trying to deal with those kinds of things that are a little bit maybe more tricky or subtle than just like getting them to do a math problem or to sit down and read a book. There's more to it.
Yeah. What my wife and I have started doing is just bringing 2 or 3 post-it notes to make sure that we've like prepared the sentence that we need to say. And it sounds like you have it and you had it ready, but just like, yeah. So like, what do I want to make sure? Because sometimes in the moment I just forget things. So I just like bring the sentence. My child doesn't like when we went for Joseph. We wrote it down on post-it note. We made sure we said like Joseph struggles asking for help. Please encourage him to get to it when he does it, right? And so you might have bring those things, but I think that like as a teacher, I think when a parent says these are the things I want to see from my child, or these things I'm struggling with as a parent, that type of humanizing interaction already feels better. Like you're recognizing you want something for your child and you care about your child and you're asking for help. Like I can't imagine your energies. It feels like it's going to be a great conference if you're coming with such humility. Um, I'm sure the teacher's going to be excited to talk about it. And who knows, sometimes our kids are totally different human beings at school than they are at home. So maybe you'll find out something that she's practicing it there. So we have given you a lot of different resources today, and I hope that at least one of them was useful. I'm bringing this same phrase up again is because the last session there was folks in the room that were like just really concerned that the new curriculum is not going to do what it's supposed to do, and teachers aren't going to be able to do the work they need to do to make sure our kids are reading and are doing math at grade level. And I would just say like the only way that things are going to get better is if we just have open and honest conversations about what's really happening for our kids, and that we support teachers in a way that allows them to feel like they can take risks and be honest. I was telling this to Jerry and Nicole, and Nicole's not here, but to Jerry, like the teachers we have are the teachers we're going to have for a while. And there's not a long line of teachers ready to step in for the teachers that we have, that we really need to invest in and build solidarity with teachers right now, because it's very hard to find new teachers. And not that we should be compromising by any means on the way that our children are being cared for. But there's no one coming to save us. There's no like superheroes coming in to like fly in and all of a sudden be amazing teachers. We're gonna have to figure this out together. And so I really hope that this opportunity to like for you all to learn more about how your child's doing, to know how they're experiencing math, and then you could just have open and honest, authentic conversations with teachers. And keep advocating, keep like engage with Jerry, email Jerry if you want to be part of the advocacy campaign. Sometimes there's citywide campaigns that are very helpful, but I've seen a lot of schools turn around when families really organize around their specific school site and recognize like, hey, we need to fundraise a bunch so that teachers can have more release time so they can get more professional development. My wife's the PTA president of our school, and they raised so much money so that we could have specials so that our kids can go to garden, so that only half the kids in the room, so they can do more specialized instruction around literacy. But that's just because parents started hustling and they started realizing, hey, we need to invest in our teachers and invest in our community. And so I hope that some of this work happens so that, yeah, teachers grow, communities feel stronger, that no one's feel like we're doing this against each other. We're doing it with each other. And so I appreciate you guys coming today. I'm going to give you guys a few minutes to think about what's your next step with getting data for your child. If you have it, if you don't have it, think about what kind of discussions you want to have with your children. What types of goals do you want to set with your child? How you want to partner with your teachers, and what are you going to try? Is this helpful to go into a breakout room one last time, or are you guys breakout roomed out? Monica, you're down for breakout room. Yes. Okay. One last breakout room to just be like, okay, y'all, we didn't just spend this last hour together just for the sake of for the sake of it. We did it because we want to do something for our kids. So I will share the same screen. I think we can maybe do the same rooms if we can.
Totally. Yeah.
People,
I'll just open them all
and we'll
right
just
now.
yeah, and we'll just do like 4 or 5 minutes.
Okay.
How'd that go? We're closing out. Love to hear a few folks share what their next steps are. Maybe your ideas of what your next steps will help someone else's next steps. Maybe some new voices, thoughts, or questions. Questions are good too. I'll take some more questions if you have them. What came up for you all on your breakout rooms? Crickets. Y'all are totally ready. You're gonna crush it. We're gonna have a bunch of Einsteins. I'm playing. So we wanted to plug the advocacy work. Jerry, I don't know if you want to add any commentary to this encouragement to folks.
Yeah, no, I just feel like I've heard a couple of folks speaking tonight that I think would really dig and enjoy some of this work. And yeah, if you would love to hear more about it, I'm happy to share more. So just email me, jerry@sfparents.org.
Woohoo. And then I feel like a lot of the questions I got last session and this session also feel like kind of special to kids in your unique situation. So I just want to remind you, you can also reach out to me. I'm happy to do some one-on-one kind of consulting, counseling for you all to make sure that you're getting what you need within reason. I'm happy to help. And then we'll close out with any next steps or just shout outs. Maybe you want to appreciate someone that was in your breakout room for just being really awesome. And then we'll see you again in January 15th in the new year, 2026. That feels crazy for our last session for math. So feel free to unmute yourself and give a shout out or go in the chat and give a shout out. Go ahead, Jerry.
I want to give a shout out to you because you're holding it together at 3 o'clock in the morning where you're at. And like I said, just still having all the energy and the positive vibes and just being of service to all these families. So really appreciate you.
I came off mute. I'll give a shout out to Jerry for leading the session. You do a great job facilitating always.
Thank you.
Yay.
And shout out to all the parents that are here, like still here, made it all the way through, came back for the second session, everything.
Yeah.
Yes, I will definitely send the link for the slides for both session 1 and 2. So just give me a sec and I'll have that for you. Okay, so I'm going to drop in the chat right now, link to, of course, yeah, session 1 slides are here.
And VJ, if you email me, I'm happy to send you links that will help you understand how math acceleration happens in San Francisco Unified. I think there's a few paths for getting kids to take Algebra 1 in 8th grade, but I don't think they're the smoothest. So if you shoot me an email at michael.j.d'Souza, I'm happy to get you what you need to, if that's important to you, getting your kids into Algebra 1, 8th grade. I'm happy to help you figure that out.
Awesome.
All right, y'all. We're
Thank
doing
you
it 2
all
minutes
so
early.
much.
Unless appreciate you all. Have a good night.
Thank you all so much. Have a great night. See you next time.